SOP 246. Today, we're talking some podcasting stats, we're talking some podcast clicks, and I've got a great deal on production music.
It's the School of Podcasting's morning announcements. Here's Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson, thanking you so much for taking your time, which I realize is so valuable, and spending it here with me, where we talk about all things podcasting, from planning your podcast to producing it, promoting it, all points in between. Our website, if you'd like to come visit me, is schoolofpodcasting.com. If you'd like to contact me, I got email. You can send it to dave@schoolofpodcasting.com. You can call in your comments toll-free, courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com. That number is 888-563-3228. Or you can leave a comment out at our website, which again is schoolofpodcasting.com. You can go out and see the typical latest episode by going to shownotes.schoolofpodcasting.com, like Bill Hutchinson did. He left me a message here, said, "Hey, I took advantage of your podcast review sale at Podcast Mechanic, and I look forward to hearing from you, Bill. I will be working on your review shortly after this." So by the time you hear this, you'll probably have already received your review. That's going on now, between now and Valentine's Day. Go out to Podcast Mechanic. That's if you want to hire me as a podcast consultant, that's my website for that. Also got a note here from Mark Valencourt, I believe is how you pronounce that. I think you were being way too hard, he says, on yourself when I was talking about my popping peas, because I've been recording on the road. I'm doing that today. I'm again going straight into a Shure SM58 into my Zoom H4. He says, yes, there was a little popping, but I didn't find it as distracting as you did. And you're not the only person that said that. And that comes back to, we all, number one, hate the sound of our own voice when you first start podcasting. And we all are really super hard on our sound quality. And so keep that in mind. If you hear yourself and you're like, I don't like it, we all hate that. That's just the way it is. Also, Richard had left a comment on our web episode about the USB headset. He said, I love your show. Thank you for teaching us. He says, I will disagree with the view of a USB mics. He says, I have a Rode Podcaster. You plug headphones into the mic so there's no latency to monitor what you're recording. He says, there is no noise. And for bass voice, this mic interprets sound very well. You get what you pay for, but I really must defend this USB mic. What works just fine with Skype and Audacity and so on. Your advice on compressors cleans it up nicely. So there you go. And that, again, that's just, I always say, this is just my opinion. I know some people like USB mics. I'm not a fan, but that's all right. Richard is. So there you go. And he likes the Rode Podcaster. I'll put a link to that out in the show notes. Got a note from Mark at a1blues.com saying thank you for the last show about the CD Baby affiliate program. So again, you can find all that out at our show notes at schoolofpodcasting.com. All right, well, for everybody who's been saying podcasting is dead, yes, that's you, Leo. Here's a latest press release from Wizard Media. Wizard is the world's largest podcast network. Now, I'm actually hosted on them at Libsyn.com. I'm a big fan, have been a big fan of Libsyn since really 2005. I mean, I started on Libsyn and have been there ever since, and they have great customer service. When they very first started, when podcasting exploded, they did have some uptime issues. But realize, we're talking at this point, that was almost 5 years ago. I haven't had a problem with them since. And they handled that like, just, you can't have better customer service than the way they handled that. So I kind of get my feathers ruffled when I hear about their uptime, because that's like, Seinfeld was on the air, I think, when that was happening, right? Come on now. Anyway, let me continue on with this. The world's largest podcasting network today announced that it recorded an unprecedented 1.64 billion. That's with a B, folks. 1.64 billion podcast download requests in 2010, and topped 19,660,000 monthly audience uniques, meaning unique people, during the fourth quarter. Now, Wizard Media, through its premier podcasting hosting service, Libsyn, an average of 4.47 million requests for podcast episodes per day. 4.47 million per day in 2010 versus 3.18 million requests in 2009. Now, that is an increase of 17.3%. Now, on average, 23 minutes per episode equates to almost 1.7 million hours of programming requested worldwide every day. 1.7 million hours of podcasts are being listened to every day. I said it back in 2005. This is not going to be a fad. And anybody that ever says podcasting is dead is simply doing it to get headlines. Now, during the fourth quarter of 2010, Wizard saw unique monthly audience hits, again, at 19,660,000, and received a record 465,701,849 podcast download requests. That's in 1 month. Or during the fourth quarter. Now, in June 2010, Apple expanded access to their iTunes platform for podcasts to an additional 67 countries, including Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Verizon users will have access to podcasts in Wizard's podcast apps immediately upon the launch of the Verizon iPhone, which happened this week. And I have yet to see any numbers on that. It's like millions and bazillions and trillions of people are now. I know I'm very, very, very tempted to get an iPhone now that they've come to that. Let's see. Capital Markets said in a recent note to investors that he believes Verizon will surpass 1 million iPhones sold in the first week. He also expects robust sales to continue between 3 million and 4 million handsets for the first quarter. Apple will sell 75 million iPhones. 75 million iPhones in 2011 is what the prediction here is. And they see between 9 million and 10 million Verizon iPhones being sold. And some are saying that's actually a conservative number. Now, let me say one thing. You don't need an iPhone. You don't need an iPod to listen to a podcast. But they sure do make it easy. So keep that in mind. But podcasting from Libsyn, from Wizard Media, up 17.3%. All right, since we are on the topic of statistics, I do run a free podcast promotion site called podcastclicks.com. And so I went over, since we were talking stats, and looked. I said, I never looked at the 2010 stats. So I went over, and when I did, I see where we delivered 208,012 clicks in 2010 to podcasters, meaning I brought 208,000 visitors to different podcasters' websites. That calculates to 584 clicks a day. Currently, there are 56 people using the Podcast Click site, mainly because I don't promote it much. That's my fault, but it's there. And I'm not a big fan of promoting myself, period. But anyway, 56 users means that the typical user receives about 10 clicks a day or 300 clicks a month to your website. So what do you do? What is Podcast Clicks? You upload a banner to your website, you log in to the site, and you basically tell Podcast Clicks where the banner that you uploaded on your website is, and then you basically copy and paste some code from Podcast Clicks. You put it into like a text widget in your WordPress, and when you show a banner on your website, your banner for your podcast is being shown on another website. And that's it. It's free. I tried selling it at one point, and I was like, you know what, this isn't going to work. And so there is one catch. If you're going, what's the deal? How can I get more traffic to my website? There is one catch. And there are different groups. So you can say, hey, I only want to show, music podcasts on my website. Or I only want to show, health and wellness or religion podcast or, things like that. I do have one banner in each group that advertises a school of podcasting. That's it. That's the catch. If you don't have a banner, we do have some people who can help you with that. And for more information, go over to podcastclicks.com. All right, I've been, like I say, always say at the beginning of the show, I've been podcasting since 2005. Along the way, I find resources, and in some cases I have resources contact me and say, I think your audience would like this. But I'm telling you, this is probably, I like $2 themes. I've talked about them in the past. If you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/$2, or is it $2? I forget. Try either. That's a great deal from Mike Stewart, but this is really awesome. It's a great deal on production music. It's royalty-free, so you can use it in your podcast as intro, outro, transition music. As you can see, if you've listened to this, I use my music to let people know I'm coming out of a topic. In fact, if you're not interested in production music, this episode is over. You can fast forward. We're done. But you can see when I was talking about the different topics, I faded in at the end so that if you're going, I don't really care about podcast statistics, you could have fast forwarded until you heard the music. If you're listening to it going, I'm not going to use podcast clicks, I don't really care, you could have fast forwarded until you hear music come in. That's just something I do. That doesn't mean it's something you have to do in your podcast, but it's something that I do for my listeners so they know when a topic is up. So I found out about this website. And if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/free music, this will take you to this website. And they have 40 tracks on, I believe it's a DVD. Now, these are, you basically get WAV files, you get MP3 files, and AAIF files of all these songs. And you'll get like a quick snippet, like a 10, 12-second version of this song. You'll get a 30-second version, a 60-second version, and then like a full version of the song. So this is really great for using maybe the longer version for your intro that you can then fade out. And you can use the shorter ones for your transition music, constantly keeping that theme going so that it's kind of your brand. If you think about it, if you go, da-da-da-da-da, that was awful. But for those of you that remember that, maybe, that was the theme to the Tonight Show. And I could hum other theme music, but as you have already figured out, I'm not that good at humming. But here's the thing. It's free production music. Now, if you can see me now, if you could put your fingers up and quote those little quotation marks, free means you're going to pay for shipping and handling, and they're going to charge you $8.41 for a CD with 40 tracks. So you're going to end up with probably, well, here, let me click on the link. And I will tell you, I'll click on the one here for rock, and it's 40 tracks. Realize that 4 of those are for the same track. And on the one for, what are they calling this one? This is modern rock. There are 10 tracks. So, that's less than $1 a track. And then you get those different versions. Now they have rock, metal, pop, hip-hop, funk, world, jazz, and a lot more. In fact, before I get to that, if you go again to schoolofpodcasting.com/free music, not only is it only $8.41 a CD, if you use the coupon code, and I'm not sure how long this coupon code is going to last, so you want to hurry, use the coupon code THANKYOU0901, all one word, THANKYOU0901. You'll get an additional 10% off. So what I'm going to do here is just play a couple quick clips of, we've got some rock, we've got some hip-hop. You know me, I like to bring in the noise, I like to bring into funk. Let's start off with kind of what they're calling business. You can check that out. But I've actually purchased some of these CDs. You'll probably hear some of this in the future. It hasn't shown up yet. I just ordered it yesterday. But here is some samples from, again, schoolofpodcasting.com/free music. All right, so there you have it. That'll take you, again, right over. If you're interested in this, I'm a big fan of music. Maybe that's why I jumped all over it. You can actually, if you go to davidjackson.org, that's my blog. I do blog a little at the School of Podcasting, but most of my podcasting observations in terms of just text are at davidjackson.org, and you can actually see my receipt where I actually purchased some of this stuff. Again, that's at schoolofpodcasting.com/free music. Now, if you're going, Dave, I don't even have, and that will be added to our resources. So when you hear me talk about how we have step-by-step tutorials and we have resources, that's a resource that's going to be added to the School of Podcasting because it's such a great deal. So you don't have to search all over for this stuff. I've already found it. And if you need production music, if you need graphics, if you need hosting, if you need this, if you need that, it's all there along with step-by-step tutorials to basically walk you through planning your podcast, recording it, producing it, promoting it. It's all there at the schoolofpodcasting.com. You can sign up for a week, you can sign up for a month, you can sign up for a year. Whatever you want to do, it's all comes with a money-back guarantee. And I would love to help you create a new podcast today. Why not? Come on. We'll see you on the inside. Thanks again for listening. If you'd like to contact me again, it's Dave at schoolofpodcasting.com. If you want to email me, if you'd like to call in your comments, I would love to hear from you. 888-563-3228. That's courtesy of podcastvoicemail.com. Or you can leave a comment out at our show notes at shownotes.schoolofpodcasting.com. And again, if you want to start one, just come out and click on the big button that says join. And until next week, class is dismissed.